Everyone, this is Chris.
I'm Chris.
I can't see myself because it's covering it, so I gotta point
Yeah, we both need more screens.
this way. This is Chris. Cosmic Culture. He's also like a room away from me. We live in the same place. Be sure to subscribe to him if you haven't yet. We're gonna do a live breakdown here. We're just gonna see this, see how it works. We're gonna see how it works. So let's go ahead and start at the beginning. But in the beginning, it opens up the same as it does in the very first Iron Man movie. This is the start of the MCU here. We'll take it back a little bit. There's even the part where they talk about and they do the peace sign, as we can see right here. And the events play out the same. The events play out the same until we get to this moment right here. Missile comes down, he sees Stark Industry, and instead of from here on out, this is the point where it changes from what happens to Iron Man to what happens in this new universe, right? Because then Killmonger comes, grabs it, and checks it. And it even says Killmonger on his vest. And why is that? Because he's a Navy SEAL right now, right? So this kind of shows us, not shows us, but tells us a little bit of the past that Killmonger had before. And I mean, I think most of us have seen the episode. You're probably watching this if you've seen the episode. We know that his intentions aren't so good. But basically, from here, Killmonger saves him, and they kind of go off, right? Now, this is where the Watcher starts to show us that all these events that would eventually go on to happen, all the way up until this point right here, Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, snapping to save, the entire universe, they don't happen. And this actually makes you wonder, since Killmonger has killed a lot of like the heroes, Tony Stark, Black Panther, Don Cheadle, well, Rhodey. The Earth is missing a lot. The Earth is missing a lot of their protectors, and Thanos is still coming, right? Thanos is still out there trying to kill half the population physically while also trying to obtain the stone so we can do it in a snap. So Killmonger has really, really altered the events of what happens in the MCU, specifically Infinity War and Endgame.
I mean, I think it's really cool that we get the sequence from the Watcher, and he keeps referencing, and we definitely need to point this out, the main MCU timeline,
Yeah.
right? And I realized that in this episode when we saw this scene that you have pulled up there. Um, like he keeps referencing back to the main MCU timeline, and I guess it really was the sacred timeline. So maybe all of these in the What If episode are branching off from the time of Loki. So there is that main connection there as well, which I always think is just kind of interesting to make out. I think the most asked question to you and me from all of you guys is, are these guys going to connect to the main MCU timeline? And I still don't know the answer to that just yet. But if anything, the main sacred timeline is there, and the Watcher is aware of that.
And I think the Watcher is actually the connection to the main timeline. Because if this Watcher is the Watcher over all of the multiverse, and the
Mm-hmm.
producers have said that this does connect to the MCU, well, okay, that means the Watcher is the Watcher
Brings
of our sacred
He'll
timeline.
bring all of that knowledge over, right? It's
Right.
like, well, this happened here, and if you do it this way, it happened this way. So that's
Right.
actually really true. So out of everything we've seen, and it's just kind of background information and something that has been on our face but not addressed. If the Watcher makes his way over to the MCU and he's aware of the main MCU timeline, which obviously he is, if he's referencing Iron Man Snap here, if we get him in the real live action side, he can reference any of this and
Anything.
be like, yeah, well, when you did it this way, this is what happened. And it's like, hey, we watched that. What if?
Now, also, you have to keep in mind for what if in the main MCU, Multiverse of Madness makes anything possible, right? But
Hmm.
the Watcher in the comics, even though he's like sworn not to be able to interfere, he does
He still
eventually.
does.
He still
Yep.
does eventually. And
And I think that'll happen in the MCU.
right, and at one point in time in the comics, like the Council of all the Watchers, they kick him out. Now, eventually he gets back in because he still watches over Earth when they kick him out, right? But he loves the Fantastic Four. He helps the Fantastic Four. And I think perhaps in Multiverse of Madness, we're gonna see the Watcher maybe interfere, and maybe that's how the rumored live action Captain Carter comes in, right?
Hmm.
Because I think she comes from one of these universes that we're seeing in What If. I think
Mm-hmm.
because it's clear we've seen by now. Marvel actually released it today, the halfway point trailer or whatever they call it, and we saw some more team ups. And I think this is leading to a bunch of multiverses colliding into each other, and eventually will lead into the live action MCU.
Mm-hmm. And I think, like you just said, the Watcher is the big link there. So that's important to notice for sure.
Oh, for sure. I think it's all the Watcher. All right, so getting back to your subtitles, since I don't have any can't put any audio. So a villain was given a new chance. This part's kind of interesting because I mean they lead you to believe that Killmonger can actually be good, and we do believe it for a while. Now this part's kind of sad because we figure out kind of what we figured out at the end of the first Iron Man, right? We know who the real bad guy is, and Tony Stark is promoted to COO in his place. Now, we're skipping all of that, obviously, because we're not going through any of the events of the first Iron Man, because Tony Stark doesn't actually ever become Iron Man. So if we skip here, we know who she is.
After all these years, Tony still has you picking up the dry cleaning.
I do anything and everything that Mr. Stark requires, including occasionally taking out the trash.
And yep, there it is. Obadiah Stane.
Oof. That was awesome.
By the COO. Yeah, it's kind of cool how this kind of gives you... I mean, it doesn't tell us anything that we didn't really know from the first Iron Man. But again, what I think I'm missing from this episode is it doesn't tell us where, like, the universe changed. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't tell us, like, and this is the reason in this universe Killmonger decided to go save Tony, or he stumbled upon that information, because that's the difference in the universe. Killmonger finding that information and saving Tony. Now, he outs Obadiah, and he becomes the COO. He gets arrested. Happy doesn't get promoted, not like he was supposed to as head of security. It's unfortunate because I love Happy, and I honestly thought he was going to save the day going blam, 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 blam.
Punches the guy, blam, just
Blam.
get a little blam in there.
Yeah, but so as we go through, party at Tony's house, party at the party at the mansion, getting major, Iron Man 2 vibes here.
Yep.
Rhodey's there, Peppers talks to him. So this is kind of funny because Tony's promoting him, right, to the COO. But Killmonger's going, I'm just a soldier, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a soldier, and this is a perfect like play here, right? It's a very sneaky coy here, as this is exactly what he wants, right? He wants to get in close with Tony. He wants to get really tight with Stark Industries, and he's doing that by kind of playing it off like, well, I'm just a soldier. I'm not that smart of a guy. You know what I mean? Blah 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 blah. And Tony eats it up. Now, he saved Tony's life, but Tony eats it up. Now, this is a part where I think the arrogance of Tony Stark gets in the way a little bit too much.
Oh, for sure.
Because,
that's a perfect way of putting it.
Right? Just the arrogance of Tony Stark just to trust this guy just because he saved his life, just because, he's a Navy SEAL, which, I mean, I would like to think you could trust a Navy SEAL. We're obviously talking about fictional universe here. But
nothing against Navy SEALs. Please don't come find us.
I have friends that are Navy SEALs. They're freaking awesome. Yeah. So, but this part right here, I mean, and he's drinking, right, mind you, but he's pretty much drinking the whole entire time in this episode up until his death, like if we think about that. But so that's when he says, I want you by my side. I want a killer, figuratively, but a literal one wouldn't matter either, wouldn't be bad either, because it's nice, especially if you're Tony Stark. Now Pepper meets with Rhodey, right? And Rhodey's like, his slate's clean, right? Can't find anything on him. And Pepper says, like, yeah, and that's why I don't trust him. This is kind of where we kind of start to go, okay, what's going on? Does he actually want something, or is Pepper just being paranoid? But as we go on, Tony kind of shows him all of his toys. They bond over their fathers. Yeah.
That's cool.
Now, Killmonger, Eric knows everything. He knows everything about Tony Stark. This is his plan for a long time. Like, this is his vengeance, right? So, instead of the events of Black Panther happening, it's completely different. His plan to get back into Wakanda and take over Wakanda is to actually go through Tony Stark. He's a major part of his plan. Why? Because he has to build what they call their Gundams, right? And he actually says, I like anime, so it literally is kind of designed after Gundam Wing, which is kind of cool for the anime.
I like anime.
Right, for the anime
Fun little
fans there.
Easter egg there.
So Killmonger, again, uses what he knows will work with Tony. They both lost their fathers, right? Their parents, they're both orphans in a way, right? So he uses that, and he tells Tony, I had this idea. And it was basically to build a Gundam, is what he says.
There was an idea.
There was an idea that Iron Man would become the death of himself by trusting a random person that he met that saved his life.
That's not how it goes.
That's kind of how it goes. So they design it, right? And it's funny because at one point in time, they're searching for a power supply. And he says right here, hey, if we could miniaturize our arc reactor. And he's like, no, that wouldn't work.
No, that wouldn't work. That wouldn't work. I'm just drunk. That wouldn't work.
Which is obviously what ends up happening in Iron Man, and it's obviously his arc reactor, which he would never go on to get in this universe because he would never go on to become Iron Man. He would never have the shrapnel constantly trying to kill his heart, which is what he needed the arc reactor for. So that's just like a little pun there. But then the idea comes to use vibranium, and Eric still has some left, and that's what they decide they need. They need some vibranium. So who now comes into the picture? Claw. Claw because he has the vibranium. And where did we learn this from? Age of Ultron.
And we were in the same building.
What do you mean?
That building, the little locker where they had all the vibranium, is the same building.
It's the same from Age of Ultron.
Yep.
Same of Age of Ultron. Now, problem is, they need kind of a diplomatic way to do everything. And Pepper kind of realizes that this is kind of Killmonger's plan. Because she's like, oh, you probably don't agree. And then he's like, no, I do agree. And then he says, but unless we can secure some kind of diplomatic cover. Now, again, all part of the plan. Because he wants to kill Rhodey.
Right.
He wants War Machine out of the... Well, I guess he's not. Never becomes War Machine.
That doesn't happen.
Right. Again, huge alterations in this universe. Avengers probably either don't get formed or form in a very, very different way. Because I guess Fury's still there and Cap's, under the ice maybe. Or no, not at this point. He's not under the ice. But so he says we're going to use some diplomatic cover, and that's where Rhodey comes in. So we go to Claw, and he kind of teases him, shows him some vibranium, and shows him a Spear of the Dora Milaje. But Rhodey's like, yeah, Tony Stark's rich as hell, and he's kind of negligent with his money. He kind of uses that all, like, in an afternoon. $10 million. No big deal. So we see all the vibranium that he had. We see the vibranium that he had from Age of Ultron. And this is kind of the same until it takes a weird turn that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah? You want to walk us through this one?
Well, we find out Killmonger is actually a bad guy, which I think a lot of people were either guessing or weren't guessing. I didn't see them going in this direction. I was actually hoping to see Tony Stark and Pepper make their way into Wakanda, and actually even maybe see Iron Man go ahead and make the vibranium suit right out of the get-go. My thought was, well, he's still Iron Man.
We talked about that before,
too. Vision. Yeah, right? Yeah. It's like, that'll be really cool to see.
Yeah.
And we did talk about that before the episode today. I was like, I can't wait to see that. That'll be really cool to see. My name's blanking. Her name's blanking on me right now. T'Challa's sister. Shuri, thank you. Shuri and Iron Man get to be together. That's where we thought it was going.
Right.
Obviously, it didn't. Killmonger reveals himself to be a bad guy. And I think Claw actually puts it in the perfect way when he says, I'd hate to play chess against you.
Right.
Because you really do get an appreciation for Killmonger's intelligence.
Yeah.
Which is very, very, very high. And we don't really get to see that in Black Panther. Not to this level. Like the game of chess he's playing.
Right.
And everybody else is playing Candyland. Let me tell you, this is incredible. So he shows up and he just starts dropping fools. He's able to make it look like
Black Panther shows
killed
up.
Rhodes.
Right.
Black Panther was killed by the Americans. Black Panther makes his line. It was kind of disappointed to see Black Panther getting taken down that easily. Cause
that was something.
Isn't going to happen, especially without him having the Purple Heart. Seemed very unrealistic to me.
Well, he did have like Stark technology, which sound is different. I think sound is different.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know if you've ever had like I've had guns fired like really close to my ears, not wearing ear protection because it's stupid, and it can really really hurt, like inside your body, like it can hurt. So
I guess if he wasn't expecting it, and it's good, powerful Stark tech, I felt like it was a little cheap to make the story work. But again, you make a good point there.
well, that's the only way probably
work,
Eric
right?
thought that he could, because he's familiar enough with vibranium to know that he just can't like puncture T'Challa, right? Like Rhodey was shooting him, and T'Challa just walked up to him, and it's just bam, vibranium,
Literally
vibranium. Like literally a suit made of Captain America's shield. It's a suit that's a
awesome.
shield. So how do you beat that? I guess that's one of the only ways you could.
And I guess that's another reflection on Killmonger's intelligence, not just
Right,
politically,
exactly.
but in combat, which shows up later in the episode, and it's cool to see. But yeah, so we get back to Iron Man, and he's placing all these different things, and all of his games working out perfectly, or to Tony Stark, I suppose.
Right.
And it really was set up really cool. And you don't want to root for the guy who's killing all of these beloved characters, but
Yeah.
I do have to credit him, like his intelligence. It is pretty cool to see him play this really cool game of chess against everybody else for his own agenda.
Yeah. It was really sad that we had to see T'Challa die, right? Just because of everything obviously in real life.
Yeah, that was rough. I actually thought to myself, I'm surprised they didn't.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised they did
change
that.
that.
I'm surprised they didn't change it at all. Right?
But hey, it's what if. Different world.
It's what if. And eventually Killmonger gets back to Tony. And you can never, ever, ever underestimate the intelligence of Tony Stark, despite how
That is always
arrogant
accurate.
he is. Because he doesn't go through all those experiences that kind of change him, right? In this one. So, despite however arrogant he is, he's still a genius, and you can't really put that past him. So Killmonger comes in. I brought you this souvenir, and Tony's basically, Jarvis saw everything. You can't get anything past Jarvis, and he puts everything on lockdown. Right? All the like military grade bunkers come down, and Killmonger's like, "What the heck? You think you're gonna beat me?" He's like, "Nah, but the vibranium worked as a power source, so I made a Gundam." Right? So essentially, almost the first Iron Man comes in and fights Killmonger. Now the problem is, the reason why it was so easy for Killmonger to defeat the, let's call it Gundam, is because Tony Stark says it. It's programmed after him. He says it right here. You forgot you programmed the drone yourself. Your moves are his moves.
So I guess I got a freestyle.
That's kind of where Tony went wrong. Why'd you tell him that?
Bond villain?
why didn't you tell him that? Right? Hey, what are you?
Well,
Bond
there's
villain?
Tony's arrogance, which
Right.
isn't curved by being Iron Man and nearly dying, and you really see, and that's cool because we see a Tony Stark that we don't see in the MCU because right from the get-go he's Iron Man.
Right from the get-go is Iron Man, and that arrogance is
Curved a little.
It's
bit.
curved a little, like how you say that, but it's also put in check.
Often, frequently.
Right. So that's the thing. Like throughout the MCU, he has constantly has to come in contact with, well, I wasn't exactly right.
Exactly.
And that doesn't happen here. This is Tony thinking he's right about everything, and eventually it just goes on to Killmonger defeats it, and unfortunately we have to watch our Tony die.
Which again, was not expecting.
And I'm kind of confused here because it's like, did you just? I feel like that wouldn't kill you. and it was probably about 2 minutes inside of you. You wouldn't lose that much blood, especially since it is inside of you still. But
maybe keeping it less graphic and it's like through his heart, but not really.
yeah, but it wasn't. So,
not even close.
Yeah.
Opposite side.
Yeah, but eventually, Pepper realizes what's the deal. It's Killmonger, but unfortunately, Ross is there, and like, is Ross ever play a beneficial role towards the good guys ever?
Not a complete jerk.
Right. Ross is
I'ma
like
do what I
never
want.
right. He is never right. He is never right. I've never seen like Black Widow, all this stuff, So he takes over Stark Industries, Patriot that. And all of a sudden, Killmonger, because Ross trusts him because of the military background, right? He's a Navy SEAL. All of a sudden, Ross gets the army that was his plan the entire time. And Ross gets that, and Killmonger gets that army. And this is where his plan actually gets really intricate. And this is where I kind of appreciate it. Because, again, it's like, dang, this guy planned all this, and it actually worked. And so he goes back to Claw. This is technically, the military's army at this point in time right now. And Ross even says you just created, the most advanced military whatever system against, of the 21st century. So this part's kind of crazy where Killmonger and Claw, they actually go to the borders of Wakanda. Now, Eric is from Wakanda, right? And he knows a little bit what his dad told him, but when they get to like the barricade, the barrier, he doesn't see anything, and he's like, I don't get it. And Claw actually knows, like, there's a kind of a force field that also masks and makes the city invisible. Killmonger doesn't actually know that. So there is some things that he doesn't know, which I found very interesting. So this is where he discovers it, but that's pretty much what he needed Claw for. So, after that, kind of did some dying. He killed Claw. And and this is like, I actually didn't like this part.
Really?
Yeah, because I was like, okay, you're bad, and you've killed a bunch of good guys. And then he's like, I'm just going to kill another bad guy, too, that I legitimately helped him. And I'm just kind of like, oh, my gosh, like, all right. I get it. You're a douche.
Well, he needed him, I suppose.
He needed him. So that's the next thing I was going to say. He needed him to convince the Dora Milaje and to convince the people of Wakanda, that he's on their side. And then he even goes on to show him, the marking on his lips. They tell him he tells them who he is. Prince of Njobu, and shows them the thing, shows them the marking. So of course they have to adhere. It's kind of like this kind of like in the first Black Panther. They have to adhere to that, right? They have to, because it's like the royalty thing. It's like a big deal. So so it goes in, and of course everybody's still, what the heck? This isn't possible. We know the story from Black Panther, where the father is the one who actually killed him, right? So the big thing with his father, his uncle, Killmonger's uncle, but it kind of goes a little bit different. I think Shuri's the only voice of reason here, because I think the guilt of T'Chaka is too much, because of the death of his brother, and now his nephew Killmonger is back. But that leads to what we actually haven't seen, but I can guess we're going to see the ultimate destruction of Wakanda. Maybe not the destruction of Wakanda, but the destruction of T'Chaka and T'Challa's family in charge of Wakanda. Because he becomes Black Panther at the end. Like, and now he's all powerful. And now he has access to a bunch of vibranium, and I'm assuming in Wakanda he could build these armies again.
Oh, for sure. If he has all of this, he's now Black Panther. He has all of their trust. If we were to get a part 2, we would still see, the breakout of now General Ross being General Ross versus a fully armed and ready to go Killmonger. And honestly, Wakanda's probably winning that fight 9 times out of 10.
Oh, for sure. For sure. But we had a pretty cool battle. This whole scene here where they were fighting the robots, I actually really enjoyed. I thought it was really, really cool. And again, Killmonger is smart. He planned this entire thing to where if they shut the barrier, basically what's happening is the transmission from the drones to Ross, to Stark Industries, will be lost because of how powerful the barrier is. But Killmonger had a remote switch that was able to reactivate them, but the communication back to the home base is still cut off. They just kind of came back online, right? Because Ross didn't see anything, right? Ross didn't see Killmonger fighting the Gundams.
Right.
So as far as Ross is concerned, Killmonger is still a good guy. He just didn't win the battle because, remember, he couldn't see. Now, Shuri questioned him the entire time.
Yep.
And at the end, she kind of pops up there. But before we get to that, Killmonger jumps on the Rhino, which was legitimately cool. And this whole scene right here, again going back to Killmonger's just intelligence. This is him showing the people, I'm with you. I'm fighting with you. You know, not that they kind of had a reason to think that the army of Gundams was his, but if they did, that's gone now because he helped destroy them all. Now we got some really cool scenes here, like really of Okoye, Queen Ramonda, and Killmonger all fighting together. Like it was pretty cool. It was really really cool to see, and I'm hoping Black Panther 2 is like this in some way, shape, or form. And I wonder if they could bring Killmonger back in Black Panther 2 in some way that's not
redeeming form.
Yeah, in some way that's not stupid. You know what I mean?
Not like, we need a Black Panther. Here's Killmonger.
Right. He's like, oh, yep, come back. Turns out he wasn't actually dead. Like, maybe, they kind of gave him a heart-shaped herb, and it kind of kept him alive, and he was life or death for, like, a really long time. But, you know, after, like, a month, he finally came out of a coma and came back. I don't know, something like that, maybe. Something like that. Now, he eventually hits... He kills the last Gundam, and he stabs it through the Stark Industry logo. And that kind of is another just nod toward, I hated you, Tony Stark. You were just my means to an end. And jabbing it through the logo is the end, right? And there it is.
Right.
That's done. That's the end.
Now we're in.
Stark's dead. Everything I needed him for, the means to the end, has now ended. I'm done. And what happens after that? Well, he gets on the mountain and talks to his uncle. And now he takes the heart-shaped herb and becomes Black Panther. And that is the end of his plan, right? But it seems like the way this ending is here, where he goes and we see T'Challa again and we hear Chadwick again, which was really, really cool. Because, you know, we only thought we were going to see him in one episode, and he's been in, 3 now? This is the 3rd time we've heard him?
I thought he was only going to be in the second episode, and we've seen him 3, and I think there's another one, no?
I think he does show up. He shows up again, at the end. Because he's part of the Guardians of the Universe or whatever.
We have seen the trailer where Pepper is in Wakanda, right?
We have.
So is that the part 2? Then we have Party Thor. Then we have the last one. Because we've seen Pepper with.
Yeah, we have. So they're gonna.
Shuri
they are gonna readdress this. They are going to readdress this in this season.
They've got to, right?
They have to because of the trailers that we've seen.
I mean, I guess there could be some other thing that brings Pepper to Wakanda, but I feel like that would be a repetitious, different storyline. So perhaps we actually do get a part 2.
What if?
Which I suppose means T'Challa probably won't be in it unless he comes back as another one of these Panther ghosts.
Well, check this out.
Really, really cool.
This out. I just had a thought. What if Killmonger decides to take Jarvis and creates Ultron? And
that could be a possibility.
Because remember, the final what we've seen is a bunch of people fighting Ultron like droids.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. We have seen Pepper in Wakanda. So
yeah,
what
I thought we had.
Yeah. So what if Killmonger thinks he can do a better Jarvis and he makes it out of vibranium and he essentially creates Ultron? And there's the multiversal thread. Ultron with the Infinity Stones can destroy the entire multiverse.
Thor gets thrown in the middle of that somehow.
I don't know if Party Thor comes into play, but I think that might be. I think Killmonger might create Ultron because we know Ultron's going to come.
Right, and he's going to have the means to do it.
Right.
It's set up right now that it would make sense.
Yeah.
And maybe the Party Thor episode is a way to get other characters involved as well.
Yeah, totally.
Because, we saw in the mid-credit trailer today, Party Thor and Doctor Strange, but it looked like, the crazy, powerful one, whose name is blanking on
Supreme. Strange Supreme.
Supreme. Yeah,
it did.
Strange Supreme.
I do think.
Right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's going to bring those two into it, and then it all meets up at the end. So there's a part 2 next week, maybe. I'm making all this up. Part 2 next week, maybe.
Theorizing.
Party Thor, which introduced other characters. Yeah, better word. I am theorizing, because I do that for a living. Subscribe. And then we get the final episode, which will be everybody trying to take out Killmonger.
And Ultron.
His pet.
Maybe. I actually think Ultron might kill Killmonger.
Which would be lit.
It would be lit. I would very much be for that.
But that would be a cool way of kind of...
I think it would.
Finaleizing. Not a real word, but why not?
Theorizing on words now, too, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll do whatever I need to. All words are made up. But that'd be a cool way of
Fly.
connecting, some what if episodes at the end, because zombies isn't coming back.
Right.
The second one's not coming back.
I do
the first
think
one's not coming back.
yeah, I think we get as in like these final 3 episodes here, assuming we only get 9 and not 10. I do think they connect a little bit more towards the end.
So that'd be cool to see. Pepper and
Yeah.
Shuri together doing something in Wakanda, trying to figure out how to beat Killmonger. Killmonger off making Ultron.
Right.
Party Thor hanging out with who knows who else, bringing them into the fold. And then bang,
Yeah.
episode 9.
Well, this definitely isn't done, right? Because it
I
seemed
hope
like, yeah. And you know
Hurts
what I
my
would
head.
actually really love to see when they're in the astral plane, and T'Challa's like, either in your plane in the real world or in this plane, like you're gonna have to face something some point in some time.
So cool.
So I'm hoping Ultron actually kills him, and then like
And then
in
we
the very
see
end,
it.
we see this plane, and T'Challa does like kicks his butt as a spirit or something like that, and all the other previous kings and stuff like that too, right? Like I hope we see that. I hope we see that,
Yeah,
and I hope they
that would
don't
be
give
cool.
Killmonger like a redemption in that next.
Nah, I
one.
think he's gone too far now. He's killed how many people?
Yeah, but at the end they definitely set up the next one.
I hope
Pepper. Shuri tells Pepper everything. Pepper never trusted Killmonger. Shuri never trusted Killmonger. Now they're gonna bond. We know Pepper's gonna go to Wakanda because we've seen that shot in the trailer that we got today, and I think we've seen it before, too. And they left us on that cliffhanger, but now that we realize that, it's nice to know that they probably aren't going to leave us on that cliffhanger for long.
I certainly hope that's the case.
Yeah. So what was this episode called? What if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark?
Well,
The next episode could
or
be
rescue.
what if? Yeah, right. What if Shuri kicked Killmonger's butt? Something like that. So I do think the next one, if not the next one of the future episodes that we're about to get, these last 3, are going to be a continuation of this. But what do you guys think? Let us know what you think in the comments. Do you think, it's very clear that we get this season, but what do you think the ultimate ending is leading up to? It does seem like it's all kind of leading up to stuff now. So, what do y'all think it is? Be sure to let us know.
Below.
Also, if you haven't subscribed to Chris over at Cosmic Culture, be sure to do so.
Seriously, this was fun. We love doing stuff live with you guys and being able to chat. And make sure you subscribe to Warren if you haven't already. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit you with one woof.
Oh no. So I do the other woof.
Yeah.
And then the chat will do one more. The chat will give us one more. No, you guys are awesome. We're going to get to work. And we will see you guys a week from tonight for episode 7. Who knows what that's going to be, but hopefully it's a good one. So, love you all. We'll see you next time. Woof woof.